Why, hello there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream artist chat that we do here on Instagram every Tuesday, or we try to do at least. For those of you who may not know who I am, my name's Mary, and I work with the LivingRoom Community Art Studio. We're an Oshawa or Durham region-based art hive here in Ontario, Canada, and we've been doing these chats for, well, I guess since this weird pandemic began, and we're loving it. These Instagram live streams give us a chance to connect with artists and makers out there who are doing really interesting things in their community. Sometimes it's our community, sometimes it's the communities of others that have kind of become a part of our community through being able to host things online like this, and we love it. So thank you so much for joining us. Today we're chatting with I suppose an artist and maker we've only just recently met. They're working with us in one capacity as kind of behind the scenes working with admin, and we only discovered after bringing them on board for that role that yes, they are an artist in their own right, a community artist as they might describe themselves, but a spoken word performer, a creator, someone who's as passionate about self-care and wellness as the rest of the LivingRoom team, of course, and our community. So you know what, without further ado, why don't I invite Alyssa Nahar on to learn a little bit more about what it's like to be her and why she does the things that she does. So let's do this. Invite. Yes, please. And we'll send that invite. There we go. Let's see. Ah, there we are.
Hi, Mary.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining me today for an Instagram live stream. This was kind of like a surprise. It was like, yeah, you're an artist. Let's
It is. No, thank you so much for having me.
No, it's so great to have you, and you're a part of our team working with us behind the scenes to make what we do a little more accessible and sustainable for the community. But you also are an artist and a maker yourself. For those of you who may not know you or that you might be new to them, can you describe yourself in your own words?
You as an artist or just in general?
Anything, whatever you'd like.
I am a 23-year-old woman living in Durham region. I have been studying communication and media studies for the last 5 years. Wow, it's been a long time. And I've also been minoring in forensic psychology. I have a deep passion for mental wellness and helping people achieve their best mental health possible. I'm hoping to become a therapist in the future, and along the way, I have always had this passion for art. And it's only until I have started volunteering with the LivingRoom, or working, I should say, with the LivingRoom, that I have come to this understanding of how my passion for art and my passion for psychology and helping others has meshed really well together and created something purposeful.
Yeah, and I love hearing that because it's this it's not a new thing, but it's something we're beginning to see more of. People realizing that they don't have to just do one thing or be one thing. They can take all the things they're passionate about and combine them in a way that moves everything forward and maybe creates new and more effective paths for others who've been longing for the same thing. So if I might, before we get into the kind of creative things you do, when were you first aware of your creative side?
That's a good question. My creative side has kind of been really multifaceted. I started probably as early as when I was about 4 or 5. I was really into music and I started singing a lot, and then in my early teens, I would say, maybe late childhood, my mom got me into singing lessons and I did competitions, and through that, around my adolescence, I started going through some experiences when it came to bullying or just challenging moments in my life, and it kind of transferred into my music and the things that I wanted to sing about, and I kind of started on this path when I was young of saying, I want to help people through my music, because I was really set on becoming a singer, and I was like, well, I'm going to write music that will help people understand their struggles and kind of bring light to some of the things that we probably don't talk about. And that's how I got into poetry, or I should say lyric writing, and it kind of just transitioned into that. So it's been a little mix of everything, and there was some photography thrown in there at some point as well, and so it's been quite the journey.
I love that. I love how you recognize those early seeds of creativity, that it came from something. It, it's not just something we choose to do. It's part of who we are sometimes. And if there's something that, as when we're young that we love doing, uh, I like and I admire and shout out to moms or parents or caregivers everywhere who, support that and like lift the youth in their lives up. Um, to pursue, to help develop and deepen that understanding of the creative work that you do. So I didn't think I realized how much singing was a part of your life, your early life.
Yeah, I kind of like leave it under the radar a lot because it's funny. I was very much set on it in my childhood, and then as I got older and I kind of just started to, I guess, put it on the back burner, and because I realized that my voice was a little bit more catered to like musical theater and that genre of singing, that I
Yeah.
guess it made me feel like my opportunities were very limited. And so it kind of took a backseat to other art forms that I was like, well, if I can't make it big in this one area, let's try photography, let's try poetry and spoken word and,
I'm glad
finding other ways to help people.
your spoken word pieces that I've had the opportunity to see on your Instagram are quite powerful. And I can see how they tie into lyrics and music. I can see the bridge between those two worlds. Was it was it a difficult thing? Do you feel like you had to leave music behind, or do you still practice it and weave it into your life?
I definitely don't practice it as much as I used to. When I was young, like I had lessons every week, so I would come home and practice every single day. And singing was very much like any talent show I had, I was always there. Any concerts that were there, I was always there. Now it's kind of just like the odd karaoke night is where I'll shine and I'll say, yeah, let's do something. But yeah, most people who have met me in my adult life probably don't even know that music has been a part of my life in that way unless
Mm.
they really know me. But yeah, it's something that I've tried to incorporate through spoken word, so at least I still get that exciting thrill of performance and music and blending it together.
And of course, there's still opportunities. I mean, why not? I mean, well, it's a tough career, but if you do you think there's a part of you that might still one day want to dabble and perform and get out there in a more professional capacity?
I don't know. It really depends. I mean, if given the chance, sure, why not? But I would never turn down a role in Wicked. Like, it is like my biggest favorite musical I've ever seen. So hey, if someone is like, you want to be casted as Alphaba, I'd be like, great, let's do it.
That would be brilliant. That would be awesome. Yeah. Okay, so it's obvious as well that the writing at a certain point in your life, self-expression was more than just about creating or making other people happy. It had to do with being seen and heard in a way that validated you and your lived experience.
Mhm.
When can you tell us a little bit more about that shift for you when you realized that the pain, the things that you'd been through, the kind of hardships that you'd encountered were more that could be used for something else, could be transformed into something?
Yeah. Um, the funny thing is, when I started poetry writing, or I guess lyric writing, it started when I was speaking with my grandfather, who is now passed. He was speaking with me about, I told him how I really wanted to be a singer when I grew up and how it was my biggest dream. And he's like, he was very supportive. And he was always like, well, if you want to make it, you got to learn how to write your own songs. And I couldn't write music at all, but I was like, I could probably like write lyrics. And I used to, depending on the music that I listened to, I noticed that it would bring out these strong emotions, and I would listen to the lyrics in some of these songs. And particularly, I liked a lot of R&B music, and in a lot of R&B music, it's really powerful how you talk about the feelings that you have for people, and the introspection that goes into those really challenging moments in your life. And it really helped me connect with how do I take that and apply it to my life and kind of shed a light on the challenges that I feel, but also the loving emotions that I feel for the people in my life. And yeah, that's how the connection kind of came about. And then more and more as I went through a little bit more challenging or difficult things in my life, I realized the connection was there and I could just not only use it to shed light on those things, but it felt very therapeutic. It felt like a way that I could express myself when I really couldn't find the words, when I just wanted to speak. It was a way of me communicating in a really artistic way.
And that's something I think that is so important for, you know, to, I don't know, kind of affirm in ourselves, because I think we have to, sometimes as creators or people who want to create, we feel like we have to make sense, like everything has to come out in this very specific way. And if we don't understand what's going on in ourselves, how can we possibly convey it to the rest of the world? But sometimes that's what about, like, that's what making art and sharing it is about. Not understanding everything or having to understand everything right away. The creation kind of comes out of that weird not knowing. And once it's out there, we have perspective, and other people can respond as well. Other people can identify with what you're going through somehow, even if they don't understand exactly what's happening. What was the response like to pieces when you began sharing them? Because they are quite personal and very powerful at the same time.
Yeah, funny enough, when I was young, so when I started writing lyrics, I was about maybe 9 or 10. And I remember I used to share it with my friends at recess. I would, more so because R&B around that time was a lot more of like, you know, the Neo and Usher and Chris Brown, like, let me follow this girl on the street and tell her how I feel type of thing. And
Yeah.
I genuinely thought that was the approach for life in general, just life situations. So that's what I used to do on the playground. Like, I would write these songs about, you know, my childhood crushes or things like that. And that's how it kind of started. And I would share it with my friends, and I'd dance and I'd sing. And I'm like, yo, look, I remixed this Usher song. I remixed this Neo song or this Chris Brown song. And it kind of came about as something that was playful and it was cute. And then over time, when I started going through a lot of more challenging things, it just started to become a little bit more like, huh, I could take some really powerful songs and bring meaning to that.
And learning and discovering what your voice is, separate from those folks who might have inspired those things. Yeah, I guess it always comes from somewhere. It needs to. We look to see ourselves in other people, and sometimes it is those huge icons of pop culture, for better or for worse, doors for us. I think my first, I'm trying to remember, I think I'm in a slightly different generation than you are, but definitely I'm thinking my first musical kind of inspirations are Whitney Houston, Corey Hart. Corey Hart. I had a huge, Corey Hart thing going on for a while there. But it has to start somewhere. And oftentimes it's, you know, what we see around us, what our friends are listening to, what our family might be listening or watching. I find that hilarious. As a 10-year-old, this is something you were doing.
Yeah, it started off really, really young. You know, music was just always kind of a big thing. Like, I remember my mom saying, or I think it was my dad who told me when I was a baby, he bought me a J-Lo CD because like he would just put it on for me and I would just dance in my crib, and I was always like kind of in, I don't know, I always had this thing with music from a really early age, and I just never let that stop me.
That's amazing. And I think that's such a great message, to not let whatever stop you, But it does sound like there were some difficult times for you. There were some periods of your life that took what you wanted to say to another level, made it, you know, how easy was that transition from making songs about crushes to suddenly making songs about, you know, oppression or being bullied or just like all of the things that you might have been experiencing at that time?
Yeah, it's funny now that you mention it because I feel like my lyric writing or my poetry has kind of taken this process of going from something that was really cheery to something that, as I got older and I faced a little bit more difficult situations in my life, it became something that it was a little bit more, what's the word I want? I guess meaningful, but something that people could relate with. It transitioned from, you know, that playful, like, oh, it's just cute and fun, to around my early adolescence having like body image issues with being really tall. Like, I would get picked on often for being like 5'10" since I was about 10 years, 10 years old.
Right.
And it's not a very common thing to see somebody that tall, and I get it. But it was something that I really struggled with and something that I felt ashamed of. It was like, oh, why did I have to be so tall? Why did my feet have to be so big? And why did I always stand out for people to make fun of? It just felt like an easy target.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my lyric writing around that time, or my poetry writing, was about trying to find the beauty in myself because I really couldn't see it. And I think having an early childhood that didn't have that much diversity, I didn't really see people like me with my skin tone or my ethnicity a lot, probably until maybe high school or university. So growing up with that, trying to figure out where I fit into the beauty standards and where I felt accepted, it just, that's where poetry came in for me. I had to try and create an outlet or a medium that I felt represented in.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you. And making it possible. I can only imagine when other folks hear your stuff or heard your stuff, even then, how like you must have, it just must have, they must have responded. They must have felt that as well. Like if Alyssia can be seen and heard in this way, then maybe I can too. Maybe I'm not so alone. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of I didn't, when I first started writing poetry, it was with the intent that, you know, I wanted to talk about my story and I wanted to connect with people, but I didn't really realize the impact it would have until maybe high school. That's when I kind of dropped the singing and I kind of started focusing a little bit more on my academics. And then around grade 12, I think, grade 11 or grade 12, we had a talent show. And instead of singing, I thought, let me do a spoken word piece because I don't think anybody else is going to do that.
Amazing.
And I talked about, at the time, suicide was a really big thing regarding like the Amanda Todd story, and just in general, it was a really big thing in our high school and around teenagers at that time. And I thought, you know, let me write something about that in my experience with that. And I remember the judges that were there for the talent show were just like, oh my God, like everybody needs to hear this. This could be a really big message. And it was really dark, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think it was gonna pass for a Catholic school talent show. But when I did it, there were so many people that came up to me in the days after that were like, oh, you're that girl that did the spoken word piece on, you know, suicide, and how I believe the poetry or the spoken word piece that I wrote was titled something like this is not the end. And they were like, oh, you know, you gave me so much hope. It really brought some things to it, it really highlighted some of their issues that they were going through and kind of helping them find that purpose in life again. And to me, that just meant the world. I was like, wow, I didn't think, you know, I expected it to connect with people, but I didn't expect it to be the reason that somebody would decide to live another day or to keep that so personal to them.
You just never know, do you? That's the thing about creative art, regardless of what kind of art it is, what like genre or modality it is, it does connect you with someone else in a way that it's a bridge of possibility for so many people out there. And yeah, that's an extraordinary thing. And of course, like that's a really strange thing to make yourself vulnerable in that way too, in high school, especially, like when people are probably doing a lot of things that are expected of them, that are already approved by your peers in one way or another, for you to just break away from that and say, no, this thing, I'm going to do this. This feels right. I'm going to go for it. And, you know, who cares? That's awesome. I have so much admiration and respect for that.
Thank you.
That teenage you. That's amazing. Now, moving forward in your life, it comes to a point where you think, okay, now I really want to pursue this idea of wellness. I want to pursue that further. So can you talk to me about the switch from art and creativity being a focus of your life to suddenly realizing the importance of psychology and that path forward?
Yeah. So I think for me, I didn't really know about mental health or the impact of psychology on our lives until about maybe my late adolescence, but it was kind of introduced in my early adolescence when you know, I particularly went through some really difficult bullying experiences that held me back in a lot of ways, and it was really difficult for me to go through. And at that time, I probably was experiencing anxiety attacks or depressive moods. And I wasn't eating properly. I had lost a tremendous amount of weight. And at that time, again, like I didn't know anything about psychology or mental wellness or anything. So I just figured, I'm just coping. I'm just getting through it, however I need to get through it. And it wasn't until maybe grade 10, I took a psychology course and I was like, wow, this is really interesting to learn like how these negative situations really impact us and how we can either allow it to absolve us or overtake us, and then, or we can equip ourselves with the right tools to be able to push back.
Yeah.
And I thought, I saw myself so much in that, and I thought, wow, like how many people out there are really going to take the time to sit in a classroom and learn about this? Probably not a lot of people. And probably not a lot of schools are educating people enough on it. So I thought, what if this is a new avenue? What if I can help people this way and still pursue my artistic abilities and actually use the art as a way to gauge people to pay attention to these issues? Because more often than enough, nobody's probably going to sit there and be like, do you want to learn about the brain? Probably not, right? But if you sit there and you tie in music and somebody hears a catchy beat and they're like, oh, let me go and listen to that. Like, who's speaking? Who's singing?
Yeah.
And what they have to say is something purposeful. It's something that could help that person in one way or another. And it's like just another medium of trying to reach more and more people. And so I guess that's where you could say it started. And it just kind of branched out more and more as I continued to go into it.
Yeah. I think it's like, how amazing would it be if with their work courses, if part of growing up in school was learning about how our brains worked,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and not just with regards to studying or learning, but with emotions and
Mhm.
and psychology and mental health, wellness, like so that we had some tools, especially as we move through difficult transitions, like to deal with these things. If I had a magic wand, that would be one of the things I'd change about the educational system everywhere, that we learned more about those things from a very early age so that it wasn't a surprise or we didn't feel so alone. Like
Mhm.
everyone's going through these things.
No, exactly.
Oh, wow. So, okay. So now you find yourself in this interesting place of wanting to carrying forward with your education and studying psychology and all of those fantastic, fabulous things, which will be awesome. Um, if you had a magic wand, where would you like to be in 5 years? Where do you hope to be?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question because honestly, I consider myself the type of person that just always has a predetermined plan. Like I was the type of person when I was in high school, like I had the next 10 years mapped out on a timeline. Like, yeah, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna visit this country, that country at this point in my life and at that point. And literally like I graduated school or high school I should say in 2016 and we're going into 2022 soon and my life has taken a complete 180. It is, and not in a bad way, it's just not what I anticipated at all in the best way possible. I think where I probably see myself is hopefully finishing my master's and getting my certification of practice therapy in some capacity, whether it's, CBT or whether it's through art therapy, but there's that side to it, or possibly working in a facility like the Living Room, possibly, taking on that type of role of restructuring the community and trying to create that welcoming space for people that feel marginalized and trying to really give access to the people that need those mental health resources and that mental wellness resource a lot more than maybe those that can probably afford to pay for private practice therapy. And so, yeah.
It, it's an important conversation to have, I think, for anyone who's involved in those fields, because there is this weird divide. There's a huge barrier with access to service. There's not enough supports out there for people who need it or want it, but can't afford to go the private practice route. And yeah, the private practice route is like to be able to afford to see a therapist, to book an appointment with a psychologist or a psychotherapist or what have you. It's so expensive sometimes. It can be
Oh,
so,
yeah.
it's, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. So finding ways to bridge and create more spaces for Yeah, important conversations to be had, more resources that people can access. And of course,
Mhm.
representation matters as well. Like being able to see yourself, um, because I think there's just not, like, it hasn't been a very equitable field within the world of psychology, at least here in Ontario for a long time. There's,
Yes.
like people,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've had friends and even loved ones that have come to me and said that it took them so many years to find the right therapist or the right social worker or the
Mhm.
right place where they felt welcomed, especially for a person of color.
Yeah.
There's so many times where I've heard that people of color don't um, have the same comfortability to go and access psychotherapy services, whether it's something that is embedded in our culture, because I know personally from a Caribbean standpoint that I've often heard and seen that when you're going through difficult challenges, the main thing we always hear is pray on it. Pray on it, and you'll get through it. And I'm not neglecting prayer. I myself am a devoted Catholic, and I'm thankful for the abundant blessings that have worked out in my life. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer in the fact that you can pray, but you have to put some work behind that prayer. And how do you get there? Where is the next step? Like, God can help, but you need to make that first step for yourself. And I think that first step comes with getting that help and reaching out to the people that can help guide you along that process, whether it's a therapist or whether it's a psychiatrist or a psychologist, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of barriers when it comes to trying to get effective psychotherapy services for people of color. And I'm just hoping that in the next 5 years that that's something that is addressed.
Well, if you're out there working that thing, I think that's a huge, that's part of it. And it gives me hope, right? And deconstructing that system as you go and recognizing, like, one of the things that I try to be aware of, and just that accountability on my own part, being a part of that world to a certain extent, is like, we're not always, like, settlers like myself aren't always aware of the oppressive practices that have just trickled down or through over time to inform what we do, particularly with psychotherapy and all of those things, right? We need to reorganize, we need to deconstruct, we need to rebuild things in ways that are beneficial and supportive for everyone.
Hmm.
And that takes some deep questioning and making, stepping back and appreciating the voices like yours that are coming to the front. So thank you for being out there.
No, thank you so much for that. That means a lot.
Um, Now I got to talk about the poetry workshop that we have happening this Thursday. So you are offering uh, a free poetry workshop Zoom this Thursday at 1 p.m. Is that when we
Mhm.
schedule? Okay. Can you tell folks a little bit about what to expect from that workshop?
Sure. So it's going to be an hour-long workshop. Anybody is welcome to participate. And the idea of the workshop is just to give people that creative outlet or to help them discover poetry as a creative outlet to help them express themselves or to help deal with some of the positive and negative emotions that we may be going through. I think a lot of the time we may shy away from creative writing because, when we're in school, English is such a structured thing that's taught to us that we feel like, oh, depending on the grade that we get, or if we don't meet the teacher's expectations, then we can't pursue this or we can't write effectively. And the fact is, poetry can be such an amazing outlet to let out some of those emotions. And I feel like a lot of people don't really look into it because they probably feel that their language or writing skills are not as perfect as English literature may judge, but
Yeah.
this is a safe space to welcome every artist of every ability to be able to come forward and just, give it a try. Even if you've never tried poetry for the first time, it's designed specifically with the intent that everybody can participate, whether you're somebody who has been writing poetry for years or somebody who is now learning about poetry and wants to get involved with it. And so we're going to go over some of the basic poetic techniques that are used. We're going to talk about the influence that music has on poetry and the influence that music has on our emotions and how it can be a great vessel to let that out to. And yeah, it's going to just be a great way to connect with people and give them that safe space that they're looking for.
Yay! That makes me so happy. And it's one of those things I think about all the time, like digging into the performer side of myself too, the actor side of myself. Like, I think if you feel comfortable with kind of like the Shakespeare stuff that's kind of fed to, like, at least at my generation, there's that idea of what poetry was and supposed to be. And growing up, spoken word for me was something that was definitely not in the classroom. Using my own words to tell a story, my own, like in the way that I wanted to use the words, that wasn't something that was available to me. And I'm sure if it wasn't available to me, for other folks, it must not have been available to them.
Oh yeah.
And you think that, well, it's not for me then. Poetry is something for, fancy pants people with accents or something. You don't think, oh, my voice matters, my story matters. You don't think about that.
Of course, 100%. Like even for us, like, I assume that our generations aren't too far removed, but even for me when I was in high school, like the way poetry was taught, it wasn't very casual, or it wasn't as welcoming as I would expect it to be. It was very, let's read Hamlet, let's read Shakespeare, let's talk about the poetic language used in that. And so there was so much brain power that went into trying to figure out what the hell Shakespeare is saying that it's almost like, can I just write about my experience? Like, Homeboy's got a great literature archive and I appreciate it, but this is not relative to me at all. I need something that relates to my experiences.
And that's I think maybe sometimes teachers don't understand. I mean, I do love Shakespeare, I gotta say, but
yeah, no, don't get me wrong, I love Shakespeare.
But finding a way to link that into, like, so why are we studying this? Why is this relevant for me? Why should I care about this? And like, where's the common ground? I don't know. So that's what I'm loving about this workshop, and the possibility, who knows, maybe there'll be more opportunities for people to really play with words and explore how they want to tell their story in a poetic way, whatever that might mean to them. And it seems like you'll have ways to guide people through that process too. It's not just going to be like, okay, write something.
Oh, no, not at all. The last thing I want is to be that person that just expects the most out of the participants in this and just like, okay, go ahead. And I expect them to, no, not at all. I want this to be as guided as possible, but I also want it to be free for people who just kind of want to show up and do whatever creative writing floats their boat. Like, if you want to show up and you don't want to do poetry, but you want to do some form of creative writing and expression, hey, I'm all for it. Like, join us, sit down with us, bring a coffee, and just, write away. And, for the people that are looking for something a little bit more guided and they're looking for, some experience or something to help guide that process for them, I'm 100% there for that.
Lovely. And as Simone quoted with a quote, a beautiful, oh, I love this one. The artist is not a special kind of person. Rather, each person is a special kind of artist.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And until, well, the living room will be around until hopefully everyone who can or wants to understand that has an opportunity to explore what that means for them. And this workshop will be a great way for them to do so. So that's this Thursday, November 25th? 25th.
Yeah, oh my God. November just shot by. I didn't think
at 1 p.m. on Zoom. The link is in the event, folks, so feel free to check it out. But before, okay, so backing up a little bit. One of the things I really like, I'm always curious when I hear people say, well, I'm not an artist. And you were one of the people when I was talking to about this, even though you have such a creative.
Yeah.
And this might be good for other folks who are out there who maybe feel the same way and or like having this conversation with themselves about, well, I like, what the heck is an artist to begin with? Why do you feel that, or why did you think that you were not an artist?
I think what it is more than anything is I'm just always, what's the word? I have a very timid personality. Like, I never like to step on toes or kind of like overtake somebody's space. So I never like to assume, what's the word? I never want to take on a specific title just because I'm afraid that I'm taking that experience away from somebody. And so when I think of artist, I think of somebody who has dedicated their life to a craft, who every single day wakes up in the morning, thinks about it, works on it every single day. And I've met people like that, and I have the utmost respect for people like that, you know, and whatever it takes to get to their passions, they're just all about it. And I think the reason for me why I didn't want to particularly be introduced as an artist was because I thought to myself, you know, art was a really big thing in my life at one point when I was early on. And I think at that point I would consider myself an artist. But then I think there's been so many breaks along my life where art has taken a back seat and I've focused more on my academics, or I focused more on caring for my family or working on my mental health, that I didn't really realize that I took a back seat from art, and I didn't realize how far removed music and art had become from my life until maybe into my adulthood. And, you know, working with the living room kind of really brought that out of me. I used to love art and love doing DIY projects. And every holiday, I'm all about doing all the decorations and doing DIY projects. And then I started working with the living room, and I was like, man, when was the last time I really sat down and created something? Written a poem, sang a song, you know, did a craft. The time just went by. And I think that's why I didn't want to consider myself an artist, because, you know, I don't want to take that experience away from somebody who every single day has been dedicated to their craft up until, you know, from childhood all the way up to now, or whenever they decided on that track. But, you know, now that we talk a little bit more about it, and even based off Simone's quote, I think part of what being an artist is that sometimes we do take a break from our craft, and sometimes things in our life do come up and it takes priority over the art, whether it's our mental health, whether it's our family, or whether it's school. Like, you know, we can't stop life from happening, but, you know, if the art is still there and the love for that is still there, then maybe, yeah, maybe you could still consider yourself an artist.
I think, and I don't know, I mean, we're annoying in this way, so I will keep telling you, I'll keep reminding you that you're an artist, whether you like it or not. No, if you know, then I'll stop. But there is this sense of, you know, life being separate from being an artist, when it is life that informs being an artist. And
That's so true.
I think it's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you about this today, because I know there are so many other people who might be watching or listening now, or watching and listening once it's been archived, and they're probably having the same conversations with themselves, or they're in a point in their life where they're maybe judging themselves for not doing one thing in the way that they should, or as much as they should, because of other things that are going on in their life. And I wish I could just shake that out of our culture. I wish that we could we could be in this place where being an artist doesn't leave you. It doesn't, you know, it's always there no matter what's going on, whether you choose to pursue it professionally or not. It's just a part of human beings. And yet we feel this judgment. We judge ourselves when we don't devote ourselves to it in one way or another. Or we look to other people who are pursuing it professionally, and what they do amazes us so much. And we feel like, oh, I'm not like them. I can't possibly be an artist because look at them. Look what they're doing.
And I think that was a huge influence on probably why I also didn't pursue singing as much as I wanted to when I was young. Because when I was young, it was like, yeah, I want to sing Beyonce. I want to sing Whitney Houston songs. I want to be out here singing all kinds of music. And then as I got older, I realized that there's a reason specific artists stay within a specific genre. You know, you have some artists that can cross over and they can do a multitude of genres, and that's amazing. And, you know, when I started to get older, I struggled to find that fit. I realized that my voice didn't really fit in the R&B songs that I loved to sing, and I didn't really know where my voice fit other than musical theater. And then it kind of hit me like, if I'm not able to sing the songs that I want because my voice doesn't fit it or it doesn't sound right, maybe I should look for another avenue, or maybe it's just not, maybe that's not my artistic avenue to thrive in. And I think it's a big thing that ties into what you were saying about how we compare ourselves to like these superstars or these people out here who are just at the top of their game. And, you know, it's an unfair comparison.
And it's a difficult one, especially when we're looking at industry, because like the musical industry is a perfect example of that. For a long time, it's been dominated by people who look a certain way and people's stories about certain kinds of people. And I mean, when we're talking about representation, like it's not something, there's a whole bunch of racism and systemic, sort of stuff that's just been built into certain industries. But I like to think the art is somehow, if we pay attention to the art enough and you follow those leads within yourself, like, I'm not giving up. Maybe you'll still be a musical superstar. I'm not giving up on that. So too late. Okay. If you want to do it, that's the thing. If you want to do it.
I mean, I appreciate it. You'll be my number one fan. Like, always there.
And Simone again, saying, when we talked about this, Mary, someone brought up early art trauma. Oh yeah, art trauma. The sense of, like, do you think there was a sense culturally, or were there voices in your life? Like, it sounds like your family was super, super supportive.
Oh yeah.
Everything you wanted to do. Awesome. So, there are other voices in your life, other stories you were hearing about yourselves that were perhaps telling you, no, this isn't for you. You don't belong in this world.
Mm, I guess so. To be very honest, I would often like try out for specific roles, or I would, especially like in drama, musical theater, you think, oh, it's just going to be based on my acting capabilities, or it's just going to be based on that. And then you get to a point where you're sitting there like, well, I may have the voice for Glinda, but do I look like Glinda? I'm not blonde. Like,
Whose
so
version are we talking about here? Yeah.
yeah, and so I kind of got to a point in my musical theater journey where I wondered, where do I fit in that? Am I even gonna have the ability to star in anything that I really would want to do? Like, could I do West Side Story? Probably not. Or can I do Wicked? Well, maybe if they paint me green and I'm Elphaba, then sure. Like, but I noticed more and more that there were times where, teachers would be picking the same students for lead roles, whether it was in elementary school or high school or things like that. Or, I just didn't have that much opportunity probably until I started branching into spoken word, because that was just something I don't remember a lot of people in my high school really doing. It was a handful of us that probably did it. And there was no department for us. There was a department for the visual arts student, there was a department for the media studies and photography students, musical theater, drama, but there was nothing dedicated to spoken word. And I thought, man, the only way I'm going to get into this concert is if I do something very different. And, that's where I found my niche. And I think that's what I love about spoken word. It doesn't, I mean, no art form should have to limit you from participating in any capacity, but I like the fact that spoken word doesn't have a preconceived idea of what a spoken word artist looks like or what their experience is like. It's just you talking about your struggles in whatever capacity that is.
Yeah. And coming out of, I think, an African American experience, I think, like, and which moves through hip hop and rap, and using the voice in other ways as an instrument to convey other things. And so perhaps, like, I think there was a lot of resistance in that early work you were doing, whether or not it was labeled as resistance. You were standing up for things greater than, yeah, you were doing the thing.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that things are changing. Just even thinking about the world of entertainment and performance, my toes and fingers are crossed. I'm hopeful that things are changing for other performers like yourself who are younger, maybe wanting to move forward, that they can see themselves and in those roles, and that the people who are directing and telling the stories, writing the stories, are creating roles for, people who haven't had these opportunities before. And let's see. Oh, interesting. So Simone again. Hi, Simone. Something else that's so ingrained that if we enjoy / are good at something creative, we should turn it into something commodifiable or performative.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just better to play. And that's the other side of it as well. Like, recognizing just because you are good at something, just because you love something, it doesn't mean you have to do it as a career. You don't have to pursue it professionally.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason why I was like, what defines us as an artist? Because is an artist somebody that does this as a living or makes this their full-time job? And because I know for me, art is kind of, it's not really my full-time job, but I love it. It's a side hustle, I guess you could say, or it's something that's on the side that I partake in when I have time. But, does that change the way that we define ourselves as an artist then? How much time we invest into art?
I don't know. I don't think it should. I think we can do it for ourselves. We can do it for, we can make something that we never share with anyone else. I like to think that creativity is just a part of who we are as humans, whether we choose to share it or not, or sell it or not, or celebrate it or not on Instagram or whatever. Like, I think this is a fairly recent idea that we should all become masters in, like, this absolute dedication to something. I
Mhm.
is a little different now than it's ever been before. We have these ideas of the old masters, these people who dedicated themselves to a certain craft and became the best at it. And maybe, if that's what someone wants to do, that's what they can do. But I also think more often than not, life happens, like you said.
Oh yeah. I
And
think I like what Simone mentioned too about how like, sometimes we're labeled something or we're forced into something just because we're quote unquote good at it. And I think a big part of my life early on was I had teachers that were trying to constantly put me into sports. And my dad's a big sports fan, but he didn't push it on me, but he was like really happy to see me play basketball when I did when I was in elementary school. And going into high school, with my anemia, I couldn't keep up with basketball the same way, and it just kind of fell off for me. But so many people, when I would try out for something musical and it didn't work out, it was always, you should go into sports. You'd be better in that. You do so well because you're so tall, and all that height is going to waste because you're not using it for something that, you could be amazing at. And the fact is, yeah, I'm tall, but there's a lot of sports I am not good at. I had teachers pull me out of class to try out for a long jump just because my legs were long. They assumed I'd be great at it. And I was like, no, I am terrible at long jump. High jump, same thing. My teachers would be so mad that I wasn't good at it. And they'd be like, well, we expect you to be good at it. You have the height for it. You'd be a star athlete. Well, I'm not. I'm just born this way. But I'm not able to participate the way I want to or the way you want me to. I can't perform the way you want me to.
yeah, the performative features of people who make assumptions about who we are, and then they're disappointed in us when we're just being ourselves. That's
Yeah.
hell with. That is a difficult thing, especially for someone at a young age to encounter. Um, yeah, gosh. Yeah, mental health in schools, please. Mental health education and awareness in schools, please. For the teachers as much as anyone else. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
yeah. 100%. I second that.
Now, I hesitate to say this now after all our conversation, but I was wondering, uh, I don't know, would you be open to sharing some poetry with us today?
Yeah, yeah, no problem. I actually
Don't have to, because after all of this conversation about you do you, be fine, the expectations of true. Would you like to read a poem?
no, it's not a problem at all, honestly. I actually took the liberty of writing a poem because I realized that I haven't written a poem probably. The last time I probably wrote a poem was 2018, so it's been a really long time since I've actually sat down and practiced spoken word again. So I took the time today to kind of think about where I'm at in my life and how different that is compared to the other spoken word pieces that I've written along the way. And so I decided to write a spoken word titled 10 Years.
Wow, okay, this is awesome. Thank you. Okay, all right, I'm going to be quiet now. Oh,
Here. So 10 years. My life has taken such a wild turn in ways that I would have never imagined. I've met amazing individuals who have inspired me to pursue my passions. I was silenced by my anxiety, my trauma, my depression, my fears, but now I regain the courage that I was seeking for so many years. I can smile again after years of so much pain. I can hope for sunshine even on my rainiest days. I now know the feeling of loss, grief, and strife, but I also know the meaning of love, success, and light. I stand tall and proud in this world. I see the princess that I always imagined becoming since I was a little girl. I take pride in every 5 foot and 11 inches of me, and I still wear 5-inch heels and walk confidently. I look to the women who have embodied everything I wish to be, and I carry them in memory and I carry on their legacy. When someone doubts my abilities, I prove them wrong twice over and make them regret ever giving me the cold shoulder. In my community, I seek out the shy souls that have yet to see their potential and ignite a spark in them like my mentors did for me. I've always tried to plan out my destiny, but somehow I've been abundantly blessed and guided to be exactly where I need to be. My life has taken detours, hit dead ends, and required rerouting along the path, but I've managed to drift past those obstacles and circle right back. 10 years ago, I was not the woman I am today. My mindset has changed, my attitude has matured, but 10 years from now, I pray that I am the same woman in every possible way and will become better with each and passing day.
Thank you so much for that.
No, it's not a problem at all. It's funny when I look back at the spoken word pieces that I've written, it really takes me on a journey of my life that I didn't realize. You know, you're writing from such a vulnerable place, and then you look back and you think, wow, my life has really taken a really big turn from, you know, going through body image issues and then um, being in relationships that didn't pan out the way you wanted and how difficult that could be. And then my diagnosis with anxiety and, generalized anxiety disorder and depression. And then coping with, the loss of my grandparents who were such prominent roles in my life, really influential, some of my best friends. And, then getting to a point in my life now where I look back and there was a lot of difficult times, don't get me wrong, and I think life is always going to have those difficult moments, but I look back now and I think, wow, I've come from so much and I'm probably in the happiest place that I have ever been in my life thus far. And I could have never imagined that I would have been here 10 years ago, and now that I am here, it makes me hopeful to know that in the next 10 years from now, I don't know where I'm going to be, but I'm very hopeful that it's somewhere that I'm going to be really grateful for and that it's going to be the new happiest moment in my life.
Love it. And there's a lot of love coming in for you as well. I don't know if you can see it, the comments, the heart popping up there. So, coming to an end of this chat, this Instagram live stream chat with you, knowing that we have that workshop, amazing free workshop you're going to be leading this Thursday at 1 p.m. Looking back at the young artist you were, imagining there might be other young artists and community members out there, or old artists, you can, age and stage mean a lot of different things depending on context, right? For folks who might be there considering or dreaming of being in the place you're in now, or maybe they're in a difficult place, not quite sure what's coming next for them. Is there anything that any thoughts, anything you'd like to leave for them or with them as we wrap up here today?
I guess the biggest thing would just be never sell yourself short. I think I've made the mistake enough in my life that I have settled for a lot of things, whether it's because of the opportunities that were given to me when I was young in the art realm, or whether it was a lack of representation or just negative experiences overall that I had that made me feel like I wasn't going to be great at something, or I couldn't possess the abilities to excel in a particular field. And especially when it comes to art, there is so much room to excel in any capacity. So there is never, oh, this artist is better and that artist is better. Like, every artist is amazing in whatever ability that is, or at any level. And I think, anybody who is either in art right now and trying to get somewhere with it, or somebody who is thinking about bridging that field from wherever they are now and transitioning into art,
Mm.
I think it's important that you know that you have that chance to be the best that you possibly can be. Just give yourself enough credit and push yourself to do it.
Yeah. Whether you become something that, whether you pursue it professionally or if it's just for the love of it, and
Mhm.
sharing your story with someone else. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing too to just understand that art isn't necessarily about making something, but a big part of art is connection. And, you know, as humans, we have this inherent need for connection and social interaction. And so sometimes it's not just about, oh, I'm going to do art because I want to create something. Just connect with people. If talking with people is something that you're afraid of, use art as that way to connect with people and
Yeah.
get out there and meet people.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing so much of your art and your heart with us and the community. Uh, yeah, so happy that you spent time with us and really looking forward to Thursday's workshop as well. So thank you so much. Any last shout outs you want to put out there into the universe? Anything you'd like to say to anyone who might be watching or listening?
Honestly, I just want to keep encouraging people to, you know, collaborate and to make some purposeful art.
Mhm.
And, you know, even today, like I'm wearing the jacket that my cousin AJ has made. He has this amazing custom jacket line.
Oh,
With all these amazing designs. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you can like see it from the back. I'll try and like pull back. But
yeah.
on the back, it says create your world. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, we can't see all of it. Maybe you can share a picture afterwards that we can post tag or something. I like that. Create your world.
Yeah. No, he's an amazing artist, and his brand is called Soul 7. But
Okay.
I'll drop the link on my story, and you know, I just think it's really important that artists continue to collaborate and make that connection because you just never know where it's going to come. Sometimes you make one art form, and then you collaborate with other people, and you make this gigantic art project that ends up connecting with so many people.
You'd never know. Just where your allies, where your friends, where your new family, your chosen family are going to come from. You don't know. You don't really know until you reach out and connect, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely follow your cousin too. That's great. Thank you. I saw that picture of your jacket on your Instagram and I was like, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you in Thursday's workshop. Yeah.
Oh, no, I look forward to seeing you and meeting everybody that is going to participate. I am so, so happy to meet each and every one of you, and I'm happy to share that connection and give you all that safe space to express yourselves in whatever capacity you'd like that to be.
Amazing. Looking forward to it, Alyssia. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Well, how do I do this now? Oh, I don't know. Oh, there we go. Ha ha. Oh, folks, thank you so much for joining us again. And thank you so much to Alyssia for taking time out of her afternoon to just share that story with us, share that art with us, that beautiful poem, and just another great message to leave today with, that idea of don't sell yourself short. It's hard if you don't necessarily have the folks around you to believe in you and to push you, to nudge you forward, especially during those difficult times. But your voice matters. Your story matters, especially if you're not seeing your story out there, if you're not seeing yourself out there. Hang in there in whatever capacity feels right to you, doing what you need to do to take care of yourself, but also to help yourself remind yourself that your story matters, that your experiences matter. And you never know when you turn them into something artful, have the courage to share them, even if it's just with one other person out there in the world. You never know whose life you might change by doing so. So thanks so much to Alyssia for sharing that time with us. And I suppose I'll see you in Thursday's workshop, Thursday, 1 p.m. Check out the Facebook link of the Living Room Community Arts Studio to learn more. All right, folks, have a wonderful day and see you later. Yeah, until we have an opportunity to create and connect with one another in person again, I look forward to creating with you right here online. I almost forgot the thing I've been using for the last 2 years to sign off with. Wow, that's something. See you soon, folks. Bye.